Welcome back to Tactical Pontoon, and today we've got the macro lens out. That means we're going to get up close and personal because it is another Tactical Pontoon troubleshooting tip. Are you ready? Look at that beautiful little sticker. That is the baby pontoon because, like I said, we've got the macro lens out, the big one. That's the one you're used to seeing. So you can see we're up and close and personal. So let's get it focused in here on what we want to see. You are seeing the connector. This is an aftermarket connector and a trigger bar. Now, this video is on what happens if you do not lubricate your trigger system. Now, Tactical Pontoon, I send out all of my trigger systems with lubrication. It comes with Badger Snot. You can get it on the website. Best trigger lubricant there is. But most of your other triggers will come unlubricated. Pretty much all of them. I think I'm one of the only because it's a custom unit. And I don't want them to get ruined. Apex, Agency, any of those others are going to come unlubricated, which means if you drop that dude in and you just dry fire away or you take it out to the range, normally what's going to happen is the trigger pull is going to start getting heavier. It will slow, you won't notice it at first, and then it's going to get heavier and heavier and to the point where it's not going to break. Now, you might take it apart. Everything will look okay. You're not looking really close like we are today. You put it back together, and it may actually start firing again. That's the weird thing about this. And then within usually about 10 pulls of the trigger, it's going to start binding up again. So what has happened? Well, I'm going to show you. I took just some extra parts I had laying around, a trigger bar, and an aftermarket connector. The one thing is, this can happen to factory connectors. It can happen to aftermarket connectors. The one thing that I have noticed is aftermarket connectors do not have the same hard finish on them that the stuff from Glock does. Okay? So they do have a little bit softer finish, which means it's normally going to happen quicker, but it can happen to factory ones as well. I threw these in a gun. I wiped the gun down. I made sure that everything was nice and dry, and I dry fired this thing about 70 times before it started acting up. After about 80 times, it got to the point where it would not fire. So it went from about a 5.5 pound trigger, thereabouts. I didn't put a gauge on it, and went to about 8 to 9 pounds, and then it got to the point where it would not break. Okay, what I'm going to show you here is what happens. I'm going to pull this trigger apart, and we are going to look at the beak of the trigger bar. See if we can. Now, the trigger bar itself sometimes will get scratches. You can see that this one, it actually came out okay. And normally that's what's going to happen, is the trigger bar itself normally, let's see if I can zoom this guy in. The trigger bar itself is okay, but you want to look for any sort of micro scratches in this area. Okay, that is what rides against the ledge on the connector to drop the cruciform. You want to look for any sort of micro scratches, or otherwise sometimes you can polish those out. Sometimes not, depends on how bad the scratch is, but look for scratches and gouges in this area. Okay, this one looks okay, and I was expecting that to be the case. It normally takes a lot to destroy this this beak, if you will. What did happen is this connector, let's see, I'm going to set it down here, and we're going to zoom in, or we're going to focus in on it. This connector right here has gouges. Let's see if I can get a little better. See if we can move the light to get a better view of it. This connector has gouges right in this area. It's minute, and if you're not looking for it, you are going to miss it. But there are gouges and a rub mark where the trigger bar rides on this ledge. Okay, it has worn a bit of a groove. It's got a gouge in there. It's marred up. That is what is causing the trigger to become heavier or not break whatsoever. Sometimes, if you have a buffing wheel, a motorized buffing wheel, or a Dremel with a good buffing pad and a good cutting polish, you can make it work again. You can polish it up. You can get rid of that mar, and it will work again. Most of the time, you're going to need to replace this connector. So the idea behind all of this is, if your trigger all of a sudden starts getting heavier, this is where to look. These two places are where you need to look. Look really close. And when in doubt, connectors are normally relatively inexpensive. Throw another one in. That's a good troubleshooting way to get. Now, again, you need to lubricate them. Get a hold of some Badger Snot. It's currently on sale on the website, and even when it's not on sale, it's a good price. A little bit goes a long way. You don't need much on there. But the myth that Glocks can run dry is a myth. Now, you might get lucky with, especially if you're shooting some dirty ammo and the carbon from the gunpowder gets inside of there and lubricates things up. Sure, you might get lucky, but if you're just dry firing or life is not on your side, this is going to happen. So, if the trigger starts getting heavier all of a sudden, especially after you've cleaned it and maybe you forgot to lubricate, or you just dropped a new trigger assembly in, it's not a failure of the trigger assembly. It's just a failure on the install. So, let me help you save yourself some money, save yourself some heartache, and keep you from having to run to a gunsmith when it's something that you can easily fix. A new connector. But from the start, just lubricate it. Get yourself some Badger Snot. And just know that when you buy a Tactical Pontoon trigger, it comes with Badger Snot lubricant already installed. Now, you can double check it. You can add some more. You can wipe it off and you can put your favorite on there. Whatever's good. But just know that I get you taken care of. That's it. That's it for today's episode of Tactical Pontoon Tips, troubleshooting tips. Catch you next time.